Good evening. My name is Lawrence Jackson. I'm a financial professional focusing on finance, tax, and accounting. Today, I want to talk to you about the importance of financial preparedness. In these challenging times, it's very important for us business owners to know where we stand financially. I call that keeping score. But anyway, there are three financial statements that are very important to your business. I'm sure you all know about the income statement, but there's also the balance sheet and the cash flow statement. Today, I want to talk about understanding your balance sheet. And I'm going to be brief, but I want to go through the elements in your balance sheet, which are assets, things that you own, liabilities, things that you owe, and equity. That's what you really own. That's the part of the company that you really own. These things are important to understand because these are the things, the items in the background that most people don't see or pay close attention to. So let's start with assets. It's time to evaluate the equipment that you own. Sometimes you have equipment that served a great purpose when you started, but you no longer use it or need it. Those are items that I sometimes call non-income producing items because they still are physically in your possession. They still take up some space, but they're not producing the income that they used to, or maybe you've grown out of it. For example, like a computer. You've replaced the computer, you've got a more powerful computer, it's got more memory, etc. So it would be nothing wrong with taking that old computer, wiping the data away from it, and possibly donating it to someone or a 501c3 where you could get a charitable deduction, but donating it to someone who needs that computer, or possibly selling it. Something to consider. Computer is a simple example, but there are other items, assets, pieces of equipment that you may own that you want to evaluate. The next area on your asset side of the balance sheet you want to evaluate are your accounts receivable. If people owe you money, it's time to collect. Get out of your feelings and call those folks, remind them that they do owe you. And sometimes if people are really struggling, we all go through different things, then maybe you settle for a smaller amount. But the main thing is to collect the money that's owed to you. The next area of the asset class that I want you to evaluate is your inventory. If you have a restaurant and you might have food that maybe hasn't moved because of the situation that we're dealing with, consider donating that food. Consider maybe pre-preparing that food or packaging that food up and maybe use it in some type of a marketing ploy where you might give away a certain amount as you know, as long as people buy something else, bundle it up with other things, but find a way to move inventory. Inventory on your shelves is money that you haven't collected. It's almost like another type of receivable because that's money that you have invested in a product that has not moved. If you're a service-based business, you're trading time for money. Make sure the services that you have are you're maximizing the time that you use to market those services. The next area is cash. Understanding how much cash you have on hand and how you've deployed that cash. How do you use that cash? What happens if you end up with extra cash? That's always a good problem to have, but in this challenging time, you may not want to use that cash to pay down debt. You might want to hold on to it so that you can be prepared for other scenarios that may come unexpectedly. The next area of the balance sheet I want you to examine is the liability section. Speaking of cash, one of the areas that you may have access to is a line of credit. Lines of credit are used to help you with short-term cash shortfalls. So if you have a line of credit, and let's say you have available $10,000, just for example, it might not be a bad idea to draw some of that, if not all of that money out, and keep it on the side in your checking account or savings account, so that if something happens and you really need to have access to that cash, you don't have to go through any procedures. Because in this challenging times, oftentimes banks change the procedures or actually lock you out of access to lines of credit, even if you have great credit. That's something that we can explore deeper as we go on. The next thing that you want to do is call all of your creditors, people that you owe money to. Give them a call. If it's family or friends, give them a call. Let them know what's going on. Be honest. Let them know what's going on with your business. If it's a micro lender or some other non-traditional funder, give them a call. Some of those entities may have special programs or situations that, unless you communicate, you know nothing about. The other thing that's more important, and I think is often overlooked, is some of those micro lenders are looking for your feedback. If they don't know what's going on with your businesses, then they don't really know how to react. So giving them feedback, letting them know, giving them a call, say, hey, I had traffic patterns of 41 people an hour, and now I'm down to 20 people. I don't know how long this is going to last. Here's what I'm doing. You can also sometimes get good strategy from them. If you have traditional bank loans and credit cards, give them a call. Oftentimes there may be opportunities to skip a payment, to pay interest only, to maybe have 2 payments that you skip or miss, or maybe not miss any payments at all, but just making them aware of what your situation is. But in that situation with liabilities, communication is of the utmost importance. And finally, there's my favorite, and that would be equity. What you really own, the value of your company. When you first started your business, you invested money to get your business to a point where you could start to do transactions or execute transactions. And that created some value for your business. You should be aware of what that equity amount is currently. So I know that was brief, but I just wanted to give you some things to think about. And hopefully you'll all sit down, take some time, and go through your balance sheet and understand what you own, your assets, what you owe, which are your liabilities, and what you really own, which is your equity. If you don't have a balance sheet, it's time to get one. It's not that hard to put together, but it's time for all of us to get sophisticated. And I know you can, and I know you will. Take care. Till next time.